Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota Podcast. My name is Mpho and Tim. I've got Tim here with me as well. Tim, how are you doing?
All good, mate. All good.
Yeah.
Yeah, all good. All good. I was thinking of something there, but no.
Look,
good.
we're a South African cricket podcast, if you haven't known, and we talk all things South African cricket. You can follow us on X at Full Quota Pod. You can subscribe to the Full Quota Podcast YouTube channel. That lets you know when we go live, like now. And also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, please do look out for us at Full Quota Podcast for all you audio people. And most importantly, please do help us. We appreciate any and every support. You can buy some coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Full Quota Podcast. So we're a week away from a test match series, an away one. It's been a while since we've had an away test series. Yes, you'll tell me about New Zealand. We've gone through all of that earlier on. But now this is a full-strength Proteas team traveling. And this time they're traveling to a place they haven't been to since 2015, and that is Bangladesh. And so we have decided to just do a preview of what you're going to expect next week, Monday, when the Proteas take on Bangladesh and Mpho, to kind of have a sense of what Bangladesh look like. They have had a really great test series against Pakistan. They also had a good test series against India, who are the best team in the world in India. Outside of India, they're not so great, but in India, they are very good. And Bangladesh, I think, played really well there, even though India do what they do. But anyway, we're here to have a conversation and kind of keep you in the know, because the test series is going to start. Then we're going to go into Pakistan, and then we're going to go into Sri Lanka. And from a World Test Championship perspective, the Proteas need to be near perfect over the next 3 test series. We can only lose 1 game. And if we win all 5 of the 6, we could find ourselves at Lords. And so this is the start of that. And so we thought we'd get Tawhid in here, because they too have World Test Championship ambitions. And so it would be also pretty cool if they made it off the back of us. But yeah, we'll have a discussion about that. But let's have a conversation with Tawhid, who is our not resident, but our Bangladesh cricket journal. He can be found at Side Screen Cricket Journal on Twitter. So that's also a place for you to have a look at him and follow him too. It's really great content there. Hi Tawhid, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, last time we spoke was for the World Cup. At the time before, when actually there was a bilateral series, Bangladesh actually did something that nobody thought they could do, and they broke a record by winning their first ever ODI series in South Africa. Now, fast forward about a year and a bit, South Africa is going to Bangladesh, and Tawhid, I think you've got a surprise for us as South Africans, and those who are expecting that South Africa is going to necessarily roll over Bangladesh. You've played really well in the last 2 test series. So what are the expectations from a Bangladeshi perspective in terms of this test series and all the successes the Bangladesh team has had before against South Africa?
Yeah, I think you're probably being a bit kind by saying Bangladesh had a good series there against India. Certainly, well, with the red ball and the white ball, I would say that they were thoroughly outplayed. But yeah, as you were saying, kind of to be expected. India, obviously, right up there in terms of world rankings, both in terms of red ball, white ball, obviously, really fighting for a place in the World Test Championship themselves. So yes, the last series against India, I'd say, was a wake-up call, really. I mean, particularly that Kanpur test, the second test there, where essentially India won that game just over 2 days. So, basically most of the first 3 days washed out. Not entirely due to bad weather. I think there was just some, a wet outfield for a lot of the those 3 days that, or sort of 2 2/3 of the day that were lost. But India made up for that, didn't they? They basically racked up 280 odd in just over 30 overs, unheard of for their first innings. Essentially in a test, that just does not happen. But as we've seen as well, I guess, with England recently in Multan with that win against Pakistan, the boundaries of what can happen in Test cricket is just kind of changing so rapidly. But that said, Bangladesh will be kind of looking at the series before that, obviously against Pakistan, whereas you were sort of saying that they won 2-0, and that really, for them, was a real sort of landmark victory and a significant achievement in their evolution as a red ball team. They had never beaten Pakistan in tests before, let alone to win them. To beat them twice. In a test in over the space of just over 2 weeks. So that was a significant victory with lots of solid performances there, particularly with bat and ball. I mean, it has to be said that we've seen Pakistan as well in the last week or so. They really can implode as a team, and they probably it was, if you look at both of those tests in that series that the Bangladesh played against Pakistan, Bangladesh didn't really have to do anything out of the ordinary. It was just a case of just kind of playing quite old-fashioned Test cricket, just bat for as long as you can, try and get to sort of 400-500, and then, try and bowl the opposition out. I mean, it sounds kind of very straightforward, but they really didn't do much out of the ordinary. But as I was saying, Pakistan imploded in the third innings of both of those matches. They also put in that strange declaration when they were about 450 odd in the first test, which didn't sort of work to their favour either. So yes, lots of positives certainly from that series, but yeah, the last kind of few weeks in India certainly have been a wake-up call.
I was just going to ask about the Pakistan series and try and put a positive spin on for you guys, but doesn't sound like it. So I'll get into what's going to excite me from your point of view, and it would have to be your two young fast bowlers. Hassan Mahmood and Nahid Rana. So they will be very new. They're not only new to international cricket, but they're very new to what the Proteas would be expecting for this series. They're very inexperienced in terms of Test cricket, but what do you think of their goals? What do you expect from them from this series?
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting, just from, maybe I'll talk about conditions and pitches and all the rest of it. It'll be interesting to see if they do both play in the same team. I expect them to feature at some point, throughout the two games, but they might not necessarily play together at the same, in the same team, in the same game. But yeah, what do I expect from them? So yeah, as you were saying, Nahid Rana, hugely exciting, first foray into Test cricket, particularly against Pakistan. I thought the battle that he had with Mohammad Rizwan in particular during that Test series was really quite thrilling and kind of almost was a real sort of turning point in that Test series for Bangladesh. The way that he absolutely he's basically the quickest bowler that Bangladesh has ever produced, so regularly sort of touching 90 mph, and if not sort of going a bit above that as well. Interesting, yeah, you kind of see him as a bowler. He's pretty tall, high release point, which is all the rage these days, isn't it? Which isn't something that you can really say about a lot of bowlers, throughout Bangladesh's history in terms of fast bowling. So yeah, he's an absolute prospect. Really kind of undemonstrative kind of guy on the field as well. You see him after he's cleaned up the likes of Babar Azam, for example, and others in that Pakistan top order, and it's like he's basically bowled a dot ball. He doesn't really demonstrate much emotion out there, but yeah, hugely exciting prospect. And similarly with Hassan Mahmood as well. And interestingly, I was speaking to Alan Donald, the former Bangladesh bowling coach, about him last year, sort of just leading into the World Cup, and he picked Hassan Mahmood out as one of the brightest spots within the Bangladesh fast bowling setup. Again, he's quite languid. Look at him; he's quite a laid-back sort of character on the field, but a real hard worker. Big heart, and those are sorts of attributes you really need to succeed to be able to bowl fast in Bangladesh, because as I was saying at the start there, the pitches aren't conducive generally to fast bowling, and as I was saying, I expect that they have actually now got a good sort of solid battery of fast bowlers within the ranks. Tuskin Ahmed, who was out for a little while with injury. He didn't play in the tests against India. Oh, he certainly didn't play in that second test against India in Mpho. Expect him to be back in the team for the first test against South Africa. And then it's a case of, how many other quick bowlers do they play? Do they play 2 or 3? And a lot of that depends on, the number of spinners they play. So, jumping ahead a little bit to the makeup of Bangladesh's team, it kind of all depends on whether or not Shakib will be playing. So again, this is a major kind of story leading into this test series. So as you may or may not know, Shakib, he played in both of those test series against India and Pakistan. They were both away. However, he is experiencing some issues in Bangladesh. There was I don't know how the best way of describing it was he was named on a charge sheet along with 196 other people in connection with a murder which relates to the political violence that took place in Bangladesh sort of back in July and August time. I think the best thing to say about it is that, he wasn't in the country at the time, and, there's no way that he could have been directly involved in that violence. However, because he has been named on this charge sheet, he naturally is a little bit reluctant to go to Bangladesh. So for the last few years, his family actually reside or have been residing in, that they are American citizens, basically. I understand he's got a green card as well, so he spends most of his time, or a lot of his time, out there. So that's where he is at the moment. And like I say, there's a big question mark around whether or not he'll be featuring in this series. He has said that he wants the first test in Dhaka to actually be his farewell kind of game, so his farewell to Test cricket. But a lot of it depends on whether or not he receives security assurances which he would like to receive. And I understand there's conversations going on between the Bangladesh Cricket Board, the interim government that is in place at the moment, and Shakib. So it all kind of depends on the outcome of all of those discussions. So yes, if Shakib plays, I was, essentially you've got 2 players in one. That gives Bangladesh a lot more flexibility. So if he plays, there's probably more of a likelihood that they would play 3 kind of quick bowlers. If he doesn't play, then I'd say that kind of likelihood diminishes a little bit. But again, it is also up to or down to the actual conditions in Dhaka. So Dhaka traditionally has been, favours spin, slow and low, variety of spin as well. And interestingly, they haven't, or Bangladesh haven't played any Test cricket in Dhaka, I think, going back to sort of December last year. So the last time they played, sorry, correction, I've got that wrong. They would have played Sri Lanka actually in Dhaka back in kind of the very start of English summer, so sort of round about May, June time. So they haven't played since then. I don't expect any major changes to the pitch there, even though they haven't been playing much cricket on it. So yeah, we shall see in terms of team composition. I mean, the other thing to note as well is Bangladesh don't have a great record in Dhaka either in terms of winning tests. So they lost that test series at home to against Sri Lanka 2-0. The last time they won in Dhaka would have been December last year against New Zealand. So it's not a happy hunting ground for them.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting to note that it's not their happy hunting ground. But I think from my perspective, I look at it and think of it as an opportunity for Bangladesh, because South Africa's coming with not an A-team fast bowling attack, and I think the management team and everyone is kind of getting around the fact that it's not going to be slow and low where you have many spinners. You're probably going to have to go with 3 quicks. And of those 3 quicks, one of them that is obviously world-class is Kagiso Rabada. You've got Lungin Gitu's coming into form, and you most likely will have a Vian Mulder in there. And the question for me is obviously from a batting perspective. I know there are a lot of people who've played South Africa before, who've been in the system for years. Shakib, Monimul, names are escaping me now, but Najmul Hussain Shanto as well, who's now the captain as well. From a batting perspective, is there any big changes? I know that you have tried an open against India, Zakir Hassan, but obviously, how does that look with obviously all the others who are coming back, who are in the side and have been there, and what are we expecting from them, especially after the 4 tests that have been played this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say the batting is probably Bangladesh's biggest concern. It certainly was during that tour of India. I think their highest score across 4 innings in that series was about 250 odd. So that sort of, again, they were up against world-class performers, Ashwin, Bumrah and co in their home conditions. However, that said, there are some issues, particularly within the top order. I would say, that opening partnership between Zakir Hassan and Shadman Islam is probably under the spotlight. And I'd say certainly one of them potentially is under risk of losing his place. In terms of who might come in and replace one of them or even both of them, they have sort of rotated, tried and tested openers, quite frequently over the last few years. I guess the big thing around that is, the absence of Tamim Iqbal, basically, which has kind of created that issue in the top order. Potentially Mahmoodul Hassan Joy might come in. He's someone who, he's been in and around the setup. He was certainly in the team going back a few years. He scored a test century as well. So, he's someone that they could get in there. Other than that, like you say, there's quite a familiar look about that Bangladesh top order. So Najmul Hussain Shantu, Mominul Haq, ex-captain, Mushfiqur Rahim, the absolute veteran. He's still there, Liton Das. So, that certainly the middle order, and obviously if Shakib, if he plays, he'll be in there as well. So certainly that middle order, looks fairly constant. And with that constant look, the hope is that there'll be consistency in terms of run scoring. However, like I said, you look at those batting performances in India, they weren't great. I know Mominul Haq scored a century in that last test in Kanpur, but other than that, not really much to write home about.
Interesting what you say there about the batting and your concerns. It's a similar train for us. We are a little bit concerned about certain individuals in our batting. Just a little bit light, shall we say, as well as in our bowling. But I had a look at the stats at our players as well as yours since Shukri Conrad became our test coach. And you still have 3 batsmen who average 40. You've got Muminul, Rahim and Mehdi Hassan, who all average 40, and that's only an 18-month period. So, that Indian series, perhaps, if we're all honest, that's India. That's kind of what is to be expected. 18 months to still be averaging 40. That's pretty impressive. From my point of view, anyway. But what you talk there about Shakib, I think my favorite player in your team is going to become even more crucial, whether Shakib plays or not, and that's Mehdi Hassan. His numbers, both with bat and ball, have been through the roof. As I say, he's 10 test matches in 18 months, average of 42 with the bat. And I think the bowling it's early 20s. So just how important is he, especially if I want Shakib to play because I want the best versus best, but let's just say Shakib doesn't play. How important is Mehdi to your side?
Yeah, he's hugely important. I'm glad he's one of your favourite players, Tim, in that Bangladesh team. He's one of mine as well, and really has been for quite a long time as well, I'd say. And in terms of his importance to the side, yeah, hugely important. Like you say, he's probably the most attacking spinner, I would say, that Bangladesh have. You look at the other spinners in the team, for example, Shakib, Taijul Islam as well, who does take an awful lot of wickets, but I'd say most of those wickets are more from tying down the batters, from their accuracy, their slight changes in angle, rather than real big turn, which is kind of what Mehdi Hassan Miraz looks for when he's bowling. He's looking to give it more flight, more loop, more dip, and more turn. So from that point of view, really exciting to watch him bowl, and also with the bat, like you say, it's interesting that he has got a 40+ average. I mean, one of the things is, Bangladesh, they don't play an awful lot of tests. Did you say there were sort of 10 in 18 months, which actually for them is kind of a pretty good number. But yeah, he's improving all the time with the bat. He'll come in down the order. He's very strong. With the cut shot, I've watched him score lots and lots of runs, sort of through backward of point. Good, kind of likes to play off the back foot a bit. And yeah, just a real kind of all-round competitor, and someone who, I've said this for a while. I think, if you don't see him in a Bangladesh team, whatever the format, and he's by no means he's not an automatic pick for certainly for T20s. It kind of surprises me a bit. But the other thing that I would say about Mehdi Hassan Miraz is, everyone's kind of touting him to be the next Shakib. This is what Bangladesh are now looking for. Who's going to be the player to kind of slip into that role. What I would say is, that's not the right way of looking at it. And I say this, about any all-time great who's leaving a team. And, when a team's looking to transition, you cannot replace like for like when you kind of look at all-time greats like Shakib. So the best thing, and I'm sure Mehdi kind of understands this, is that he just needs to be himself, right? He just needs to play his own game. He needs to play to his own strengths. He needs to be him. If he tries to kind of, or if he tunes into the whole narrative about, I'm going to be the next Shakib, I can't see that kind of working well for him. So yeah, he just needs to be himself to carry on doing what he does.
Yeah, no, he is one of the players that I know is going to be a game changer for this series. If he plays well, Bangladesh has every chance of playing well. And I know in speaking with about the two seamers, the new ones, the Rana and I think it's Ahmed again. You have a situation. Yes, you have a situation where it becomes very important. And even if your quicks don't make the breakthrough, he is the matchup that I'm looking at for the Bangladeshis to try and make inroads into the South Africans and cause drama. You saw what he did against Pakistan. You want that type of impact, especially at home. Because if I look at both teams, Tawhid, and I want to get your thoughts on this, I think both teams are in transition. One team obviously is more successful than the other and has probably more talented players. But because we're playing in Bangladesh and because we have Mehdi Hassan in the Bangladeshi team, it makes this series quite even. So when you're looking at this series, are you thinking that Bangladesh can steal a game or even the series in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they'll be going into the series looking to win it. In terms of how it might play out, yeah, it's kind of anyone's guess, I'd say, really, because again, you look at Bangladesh's red ball record, let's not beat around the bush, is not very good. The last series at home, like I said, they lost to Sri Lanka 2-0, and that would have been a series that they were looking to win, but to lose it 2-0 was quite a blow. And on that occasion, it was Sri Lanka's fast bowlers that just kind of ripped through the Bangladesh batting. So, something similar to that might happen again. As you were saying, such talented quick bowlers from the South African team that might make that happen. However, that said, home conditions do count for so much when it comes to Bangladesh, even though, like I say, they don't have the best record at home with red ball cricket. They would certainly feel much more comfortable playing at home than they did in India or even in Pakistan. So, yeah, first test in Dhaka, I think they'll go into that, looking to try to make the most of a spinning track, if that's the way it plays out. And then actually, the second test is in Chattogram or Chittagong, as it used to be, which generally produces more interesting test matches, a bit more in it for the bowlers, a bit more of a quicker track, quicker by Bangladesh standards, I'd say. So, expecting more of an interesting contest in that second test for sure. But yeah, certainly Bangladesh should go into this looking to win it. But I guess there's been so many variables, so many inconsistencies just last year or two with the red ball that it's difficult to predict.
That's something that keeps us up at night. We just don't know which Bangladesh is going to come up and arrive. But yeah, it makes it for intriguing cricket.
From your perspective, when you heard the news that Timber Performer was going to be out of the first test, I had a look at the last time we played at Bangladesh. He is the only player from that Proteas side in 2015 that would have had any experience from that. He was the only one of that was there. So from a Bangladesh point of view, how is that? Is that seen as a positive
Kemba Bavuma, I mean, a stalwart in that middle order. Such a nuggety kind of player that you don't really want to bowl against too often. And it's interesting what you were saying there. I hadn't realised that it was 2015, the last time that SA had toured Bangladesh. That is really quite a long period of time. And obviously during that period of time, Bavuma has obviously, scored so many runs in so many different conditions in so many places around the world. So that expertise, that knowledge will certainly be missed. And yeah, absolutely. Who would not want to face a team where their first choice captain isn't playing, basically.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, look, I think the one final question I have is, which of the youngsters do you think will have a breakthrough series here? I think the last time we had, I think it was Hassan Joy who came through in the series in South Africa, even though that test series you did lose. But which of the youngsters are you expecting to have a breakthrough, batting or bowling?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose looking at that batting order, there's not too many sort of youngsters there, I would say. Zakir Hassan, even, I think, is in his kind of mid to late 20s. So there's not too much kind of young talent within the batting ranks. I guess it is, the bowling that of which we've discussed before, and the quick bowling in particular. And yeah, maybe it might not be a breakthrough as such, but it would be great to see Nahid Rana kind of consolidate the work that he did in Pakistan with lots of wickets on surfaces that aren't as conducive to quick bowling. Although, having said that, I mean, those surfaces in Pakistan aren't exactly conducive to quick bowling either. But yeah, it would be great to see him kind of continue his kind of arc of development and to sort of pick up lots of wickets in the series. So yeah, that's one that I'll certainly be looking for.
Okay, and is the Shakib issue the reason why the squad hasn't necessarily been announced 7 days before the first test? And how are preparations going there with not? Are we assuming the squad that played in India is going to be the same squad?
I'd assume it would be mostly the same, yeah, maybe barring kind of one or two injuries, but I assume it would be largely the same. Like I say, I expect Tuskin Ahmed to come back into that squad and certainly be in contention in the starting 11. Yeah, in terms of why they haven't named the squad, I'd imagine that they will imminently. I mean, actually, just to go back to what we maybe should have mentioned at the start, and I think you did allude to this, is that this tour was only confirmed about a couple of weeks ago, I would say, and it was in real doubt. So as you'll know, the Women's T20 World Cup was due to be played in Bangladesh right now, sort of from the start of October. That had to be moved due to all the unrest that was taking place in the country. So, yeah, it was a real kind of last minute decision to give this tour the green light. I know there was a South African delegation that visited Bangladesh a few weeks ago to just kind of check the venues, check the security, check the logistics. They went back to South Africa, kind of, gave their report to the authorities back in SA, and that's when the tour was given the green light. So it's, yeah, the whole thing's got a bit of a kind of last minute kind of feel to it, and I guess not announcing the squads yet kind of adds to that sense.
Yeah, it's been haphazard in terms of planning, but I think the South African CSA must be commended for getting to this point and ensuring the safety of the players and everyone else, and the Bangladesh Cricket Association as well, in making sure that the series goes ahead.
For sure. I mean, just one last point I would make maybe is that, Bangladesh Cricket Board owe CSA a huge debt of gratitude because, they lost the Women's T20 World Cup, which was a huge deal to not be hosting that, although, nominally they retained the hosting rights to the tournament. But, there would have been a big hit in terms of revenue loss to that. And so losing this series against SA, or losing the hosting of this series against SA, would have been a huge, huge issue. And not only in terms of financial issues, but also in terms of the message it sends out if teams suddenly start pulling out of touring a country because of safety concerns. And we've seen this happen in places like Pakistan, for example, previously. Then it does kind of start to snowball, and it becomes more and more difficult to attract teams back into the country to play cricket. So for that reason, yeah, for sure, Bangladesh Cricket owes CSA a debt of gratitude.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think you don't want a situation similar to what happened to Pakistan in the late noughties, where all of a sudden it started slowly and then nobody went to Pakistan for like 15 years. And playing cricket in neutral venues is not that great. But to end it off, thank you, Tawhid. I think we have a test series on our hands where there's a lot of storylines. It's Shakib's last one, if possible. There's a team both teams are in transition, trying to find their feet. One batting lineup is trying to make a name for themselves, or the other ones are trying to actually find to keep a job, and that's a South African batting lineup. And then from a bowling perspective, South Africa is arriving with a B team, and Bangladesh, as always, finding ways to unleash new seamers onto the world scene. So that's also going to be quite interesting to see. And then how does South Africa handle spin? As Tim always alludes, and we always cry about, especially with Mehedi Hassan Miraz leading the show for Bangladesh. So there's going to be quite a lot of storylines and a lot of things to look at in this test series. And most importantly, those World Test Championship points. Tawhid, looking at it, obviously, South Africa need to win pretty much every game from now on in. But it's not over for Bangladesh as well. And so is the Bangladesh Cricket Association looking that far, or is it just one game at a time and see if things go your way and some friends help you along the way? You'll be happy to be at Lord's.
I mean, from a personal point of view, wouldn't it be brilliant if Bangladesh played at Lord's? I mean, they haven't been invited to play any red ball cricket in the UK for almost 15 years now. So how ironic. Yeah, 2010 was the last time they came over to here in the UK. Absolutely. Yes, I've got a calendar where I kind of cross off every single day that passes where Bangladesh haven't played in England. And yeah, it's getting on. It'll be 15 years next summer, basically. But so yeah, how ironic would it be that if Bangladesh end up making the final of the WTC at Lord's? I mean, I can't see it happening personally. I think, yeah, it would be brilliant, but I don't even know if I guess mathematically it kind of still is a possibility, but I think it kind of relies on other results going Bangladesh's way and Bangladesh kind of winning all their remaining tests in the cycle. I mean, one thing I would say is that, Bangladesh, they hardly ever play more than 2 test series. And as we know, countries like England, Australia, India, that, they don't play, or they hardly ever play 2 test series. They're mostly sort of 3, 4, sometimes 5 test series. So, whenever Bangladesh win just 1 test because of the weighting of the points, it gives them a huge boost up the table. So, theoretically, maybe if they could beat South Africa 2-0, then they go to the Caribbean in November, December time. They've got a couple of tests over there. If they could nick 1 or maybe even 2 there, then they've got quite a nice bump up the table. However, I still think it's a real long shot. If I was a betting man, even if I was a betting man, I don't think I'd be putting my money on the counter.
Okay. No, you got 4 test matches left, 2 with South Africa and 2 with West Indies. So if you win all 4, anything is possible because you shoot up the table. The question is obviously how the other matches work. And I think that Australia and India series presents a problem for all of us. And so, but look, it still adds a little bit more context to a game, the Red Bull game that never had context. So I'm always a fan of the World Test Championship. They just need to figure it out, and we need more tests. And fundamentally, the fact that Bangladesh haven't gone to the UK in 15 years is a crime. And look, it's
absolutely is. And it's something that I've almost grown tired shouting about. But yeah, good. It always should be repeated. That fact, I feel.
No, it should. But look, we'll always have bilaterals with Bangladesh, and hopefully we don't wait another 10 years for us to go back there. So hopefully that will change soon. But yeah, Tawhid, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for your insight into the Bangladeshi team. Really always appreciate having you on. And look, we could have a review of the test series to kind of get a sense of what you're thinking and what you saw in the test series. But thank you very much for joining, and enjoy the test series. I think that's the other thing. We always need to enjoy the cricket. There's only stories around the cricket except for the cricket itself. So let's also try and enjoy that.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, I'm flying out there in a few days, so looking forward to it. And yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yes, sure. Safe travels and...
If you want to know about Bangladesh cricket, make sure you follow Tawhid. As he's just said, he's out there for the test series. So I'm sure you'll have lots of content for that series.
Yes. And you can find him at Sidescreen Cricket Journal. So Sidescreen CJ on X or Twitter. And you'll be following that entire series. But thank you very much, Tawhid. Have a great day. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Sure. Thanks. Well, Tim, you heard it, right? We could get a surprise. The question is what Bangladesh is going to arrive. But my only worry is that man, Mehedi Hassan Miraz, the moment they give him the ball, we just need to be very watchful. And he can decimate our middle order in a couple of overs. And that's what I think makes this test series so intriguing, is we don't have the firepower from a bowling perspective to try and nullify Bangladesh with the bat, whereas they can take us out. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see a 250 to 300. If you get a 400, then South Africa's done really well. But yeah, I'm seeing 250 to 300, squeaky bum time. It's a massive series for Kagiso because he's going to be carrying this bowling attack, and we kind of need him to get to that level where he's been at for years. But obviously this year it hasn't been there. So yeah, but the other secret weapon of us is cash. But yeah, what do you think is going to happen, Tim?
I think it's going to be an interesting series. I don't think we're just going to roll over them, man. Then they're just going to. I don't think that's going to happen. We should still have enough, but not having one of Anna, Marco, or Nandri is huge. It's absolute. I think if we just had one of those, I think we could win the series fairly comfortably, even though I have my issues with us playing spin, particularly this sort of top six. I think it's going to be a very interesting series. I think there are going to be players. This is the top six, particularly for me, to come out of there and say, "I belong. This is my place. This is I want to take this position. Stubbs. I want to be number 3. If he wants to be number 3 in Test cricket, this is the series to prove it. Bangladesh away from home, spin bowling. If he does it in this series, then that will be a huge step for his career. Huge in this format. As you say, lots of stories to tackle into as we get into it. Just a couple of things. So I put out a tweet that we're having this discussion. I asked for questions. Somebody did ask the probable 11 at Stubbs.
For the Proteas.
Yes. So for
Okay.
me, Stubbs is going to be number 3. Shokri is
Yeah.
not gonna. She's not gonna go away from that for at least a couple of series. He's going to give Stubbsy a little bit of time, so he'll be a 3. My 11 will be Markham, DeSourcy, Stubbs, Rickleton, Bellingham, Verena, Mulder, Maharaj, KG, Lungi, and Pete.
Okay, so going with 2 spinners.
Yeah.
With Vian as your third quick. Okay, cool. It's a very balanced squad, Tim. I think it makes sense. Bearing in mind of everything else. Obviously the question is Dame Pete versus Dane Patterson, right? It's the battle of the Danes, right? Depending on whether what the pitch provides on that day, right? But I don't think we will need a fourth seamer. So I'm more likely leaning towards you. The only question would be is if we need an extra batter, Dane Pete will come out and you'll have a full bowler attack of Keshav, Kagiso, Lungi, and Vian. And you're going to add one of Senran Mutasami or Matthew Bretsky into that 11. Because we've seen that before when Rickleton and Verena played in the same 11 and it was 7 of them with Marco as number 7 or is number 8 or whatever it was, right? And in the first game that Mutusami played under Shukri, we went with 7 batters, including Mutusami as that bowler. So there's that option that we might go for, just to strengthen the batting. And Mutusami could make a massive case for him in this test series to actually get both games. The only question, obviously, you've got him and Kesh like for like, and that's something we don't like. But Shukri's never shied away from that before. The other side, obviously, Bretsky doesn't offer anything with the ball. But then if that happens, Aiden's going to be bowling a whole lot of overs and Tristan Stubbs will be bowling a whole lot of overs. But the idea is Keshav can take the bulk of the overs. If you need Keshav to bowl 100 overs in this test match, he will. And he'll do that in the second test match. And that's one of the key things that Keshav brings to the side is that he's so fit, he's got a motor, and he's willing to do the hard yards. And that could be it. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what that balance is around those key spots, as if you go with 7 batters or if you want to go in with 5 bowlers and a second spinner. And where does Bretsky fall? I think Bretsky's going to get a debut this series. And obviously, I'm happy for Ryan to bat at 4. I think that's a very nice position for him. That's where he bats for the Lions, or he even bats higher up, but it's a really good spot for him to go. If you want Ryan to bat at 3, happy to do that. But obviously, we know that Shooks wants Stubbs to bat at 3. And in my head, I'm thinking the idea for Stubbs to bat at 3 is for him to end up batting at 4. So my question then is, why not just bat him at 4 since Timber's out? And then when Sri Lanka and Pakistan come up, he'll go back up to 3. But that's playing around with the child, so just let it be. So, look, to everyone here, 6 massive test matches coming up. We need to win 5 of those. If we do, you'll find us at Lords. Okay? Yeah, you'll find us at Lords. Who knows? We might just all be at Lords. So, yeah, good luck to the Proteas, Tim. And, yeah, let's have a great week of cricket. Good luck to the Proteas women who are waiting on tomorrow's game, which was when you watch this Tuesday, against the game that West Indies play England. And so they're hoping that England beats the West Indies so they can walk into the semi-finals. That'll be on Thursday, so good luck to them for that. Most likely in the semi-finals, but you just never know with cricket. And then obviously to the T20 knockout semi-finalists, they are playing their games this week as well on Wednesday and Thursday. So do check that out and do look out for that. And obviously there's T20 challenge games. We're not even halfway through the season, so there's a lot more cricket to go. So we'll be back with you sometime this week, if not early next week, to cover the series and and also talk about the T20 challenge as well. We haven't forgotten about that. We just thought we'd bring you the series preview this week, so you have a week to familiarize yourself with this Bangladesh side. Tim, any last words?
No, I think you covered everything. I was going to touch on the CSA T20 competitions, but you've touched on that.
Give us the semi-finalists and the knockout. I know that it's the Easterns and.
So let me just get there to you. Let me just get that for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's last year's champions are out. Limpopo. It's quite a different one. Let me just get it for you. There we go. So on Wednesday, it's Eastern Storm versus Northern Cape Heat in Benoni. And on Thursday, it's the ACD Express Tuskers against the Garden Route Badgers in Pietermaritzburg Oval. Just a note for you. So last year's champions are out, and the only semi-finalist from last year that's in this year is Northern Cape Heat. So it's 3 new
We're interested to see if the Heat managed to win this one, but it's going to be quite interesting to see. I assume the log finished Storm first, Tuskers second, Heat in fourth, and the Badgers in third.
Correct.
So that's important for promotion relegation, right? It's quite important that log what that log looks like. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Heat can manage to win, but also Jeffrey Toyana with the Storm here in the East. Whoop whoop! Good luck, and hopefully we get a home final over the weekend, and hopefully there's a trophy that stays here in the East. But good luck to everyone, and have a great week, Tim. And we'll chat on the other side. It's from us here at the Full Quarter Pod. Remember, like, subscribe, YouTube at Full Quarter Podcast, and also on the Apple Podcast and Spotify. Just search for Full Quarter Podcast. And then finally, please buy some coffee. And it helps go a long way to producing the content that we do and to keep the conversation going around South African cricket. Outside of that, it's for myself and Tim, it's goodbye and lesale kakagiso.